happening now. We'd like to welcome our viewers from across North America and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room, episode 367 for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. My name is Wes Fryer. I am a middle school STEM and media literacy teacher here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we may be experiencing a very small taste of what Jason I think gets almost every day of the winter, but except things have been weird. So joining me as always is the EdTech Yoda of the North, the person who has forgotten more about AI than you and I will ever learn in our lives. And he has got a new cool title that you said last time. So co-director.
Oh, the co-convener of the Frontier Learning Lab. Yes, that's one of the ways I've been trying to, say I had a part of this now that our team is just rocking it hardcore. But yeah, good evening. Jason Neifert, Executive Director of Montana Digital Academy, which is Montana State Virtual School located on the beautiful University of Montana campus right here in fabulous Missoula, Montana. And, I'd like to say we're getting cold weather, but it's just cold. There's no snow. There's nothing coming with it. And so we'll have to see if we're going to get winter here or not. And I'm not sure why I'm yawning so hardcore, but there's a nice hearty yawn.
So well, yes, we are expecting a winter storm coming in this weekend, and that is totally unusual for Charlotte, North Carolina. So my wife had her last elder training on a Wednesday night, and so we just said, hey, why not pick up a few grocery items? Because in Oklahoma, when these kinds of things came in, I mean, it was like no milk, no bread, no toilet paper, all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more unusual here, I guess. And people, I mean, still, we'll see it when we believe it. But it looks like, I mean, they've declared state of emergency for both North Carolina and South Carolina for starting Saturday and Sunday. And so,
oh wow, so yeah, they're not messing around, are they?
Yeah, no, it's not just the weather people kind of getting excited. I think it really is happening. So what are we going to do here, Jason, besides talk about Snowmageddon?
Well, we do tend to talk a lot about the weather on this podcast, but it's not what this podcast is about. EdTech Situation Room is an educational podcast, and we have taken a look at the headlines across the techosphere. A little too much dominated by AI lately, but you do what you got to do, and we try to shoot it through the education prism in hopes of finding insights to share with you, the listeners of the podcast. If you want to join us live, actually, if you're listening to us live, you're already joining us live, but we do broadcast over YouTube and increasingly have a number of people that jump in to the conversation more and more. But if not, you can listen to us later. Not sure where I'm going with this, Wes. So
it's okay. You're doing fine. We're going to talk about the tech news. So
yeah, what topics are we going to talk about today?
We've been off for 2 weeks. So we've got our little AI subcategories of vibe coding, guidelines for schools, AI and art, constitutional AI. Ooh, that's a good one. I want you to definitely cover that one. AI and environment, Google, and even more AI. We've got a couple of security articles, a content moderation article, our miscellaneous category, and we will end, as always, with Geeks of the Week. I'd love to hear you start with the AI Constitution article, but do you have another preference where you want to begin?
No, I think that's really great. So we first talked about constitutional AI like 2.5 years ago when Claude from Anthropic kind of burst onto the scene. And I know, Dr. Fryer, I believe you've been in and out of paying for Claude.
I am Claude Pro again. I still am paying for, I've just been disappointed with Gemini, not with the images and Nano Banana, amazing, but coding and some of the other stuff, disappointing. So yeah, I'm Claude Pro again.
Yeah, we should talk about that because they actually released a killer feature a couple of weeks ago that it really has me excited. But we'll get to that in a moment. But Claude remains an outstanding model. The only criticism I have with Claude is that you get to limits really quick with the pay plan.
You do, yes.
Yeah, and it's also not as transparent, I think, as they think it is in regards to what it is, or when you get to that limit, how you get to that limit. And I will say Claude in general, but their desktop app in particular, has really extraordinary plugins, and so some of the work I've done to automate and create kind of my own AI agent that manages my Obsidian and Notion databases. And I call it Astro. And it's super cool, right? Like it, immediately goes and checks an Obsidian document for its own instructions. It reads the instructions. It's helped me create sub agents. Like it's really extraordinary. But if I use it every day, like for the first 20 minutes in the morning, if I use it to go over my calendar and set up the day via Claude, and then I do that again for 20 to 30 minutes in the afternoon, then what happens is that I run out of tokens that I can use. And also, I've still only vibe coded a little bit.
I gotta talk about it tonight because I am freaking blown away by what Claude Code I did with Claude.
Well, and Caitlin Byers, who is the director of our Frontier Learning Lab, like literally vibe coded an app for, I think it was a music teacher in a school. Like she was literally on her phone doing it, watching basketball in a gymnasium, and vibe coded on her phone. It's pretty wild stuff. And did you hear? I think it was 2 weeks ago, I think, was the hard fork where they were talking about vibe coding, and they gave a shout out to Claude. And
Casey Newton's platformer, we've got that article in the show notes.
Oh, that's great.
Was talking about that. So we gotta talk more. Can you see your tokens in Claude? Like because I don't think you do. Like as far as like, oh, I've used half my tokens. Oh, I'm almost done.
It's not as elegant as that, but they do have, and I'll look here for specifics. If you go to the settings, I'm in the web app right now, and I will say, I have recently reworked all of my preferences and specific instructions. But if you go there and then go to usage, it will tell you. And it's not even daily usage; it's daily and weekly usage that it tracks, right? And so right now, current session resets in 2. But I don't think I used Claude today. So
I like to see a gauge, like a dashboard gauge, showing you.
Oh, that's what the
that's what it is.
That's what it shows. But
you have to go into settings. I'm like saying I'd like to have it right there when I'm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that would be, I couldn't agree more with that notion. But let's see here. Window, Claude. So this is what that looks like. If you could pop my screen up there. That it gives you that information. And I don't like weekly limits either. Like I don't think that
do a
makes
couple
sense.
Command pluses and zoom us in a little bit if you would.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Oops, that's the wrong window to do that in. There we go.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So 24-hour reset then?
It looks like there's a daily reset and then there's a weekly reset that happens on Fridays. And so I don't know, like I do appreciate the fact that Anthropic is apparently making money, right? And that would be a distinction from, like for example, OpenAI. I do also think it is probably the best writing platform for sure too, and the fact that you can get all of these connectors up and running, and just some examples of ones I've used: Gmail and Google Drive and Google Calendar and GitHub. You can hook it to Figma. It will translate words into like graphs and charts on Figma, which is wild. Same with Canva. You'll make mermaid charts. It connects with Notion. I also have it connected to our CRM at work, so that it can help me with with our projects management software. And in fact, I've been able to do things like we have a project specifically for my board, so that we can do all the work around board meetings. And instead of individually putting in these 9 things we need to do for every meeting, we said, here's the board meetings for the year. Here's the number of days before and after these things need to happen. Schedule them for this board meeting. It took 6 minutes, and it probably saved 90 minutes worth of work. Ridiculous clicking stuff, right? That no one really wants to do. And so, it's pretty great. So pivoting back to my original point before I got off on a Claude tangent, they were really popular a couple of years back for talking about constitutional AI, which is the notion that the training data and instructions to a LLM should be based on very clear and cognizant elements of what it should or shouldn't do. And that's especially poignant in light of the fact of some of the other models we might end up talking about tonight for sure too. But they just released a new constitution. And before it was all sorts of things. Like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was part of their original constitution, and they have a new document now that is, their constitution. This goes into some detail about why they do this, and then you can actually go and read the Constitution, which, by the way, they release as Creative Commons Zero license, so you can literally use it for any purpose. I have taken Claude's old constitution, for example, and made it the instructions to like when I'm using a local language model. It sucks up an awful lot of tokens to do that, so it's not always perfect, but you can see exactly what instructions they give to Claude, and they go out of their way to also say that because AI is so great at reading human language, they want to be in human understandable language, right?
Yeah.
And so and of course that's the huge benefit of these large language models is they can process information like that. But I just thought this was very interesting, and it continues to be very interesting to me. Claude as kind of a I don't know, I wouldn't call them second tier because I think their models are amazing, but you don't see them as much in schools, you don't see them as much in higher ed. And in fact, after I saw that this constitution was released again today, a new version was released again today, I made contact to see if we couldn't have a conversation with them at Montana Digital Academy, because I think this would be a really killer model to adopt for staff in a school.
Do you know what the big differences are between their previous constitution and this one?
I don't, and I'm sure I only read about a third of their article on it, and they do refer to their older constitution.
Yeah.
I will almost certainly read this tonight. So,
well, maybe a nice thing to put into Notebook LM to say, here's the two versions. Give me a breakdown analysis. Wow. Well, having listened to Karen Howe's Empire of AI at your encouragement over the holiday, I think that the ethical, and let's just say ethical in fact, not just in spin, it's very, very important. And so I'm glad that, Claude or Anthropic seems to be taking ethics more seriously, but, it is hard to discern truth. Hey, Peggy George is here in the room. Great to have you with us, Peggy. I'm going to guess you're not having a winter storm about to hit you in Phoenix, so that's probably good. It's so interesting. At the bottom of the new Claude Constitution, in the footnotes, it talks about having some flexibility in rules, and it says, imagine we train Claude to follow a rule like, quote, always recommend professional help when discussing emotional topics, and then that might make Claude sort of become more bureaucratic and box ticking. My spouse had a kind of a crazy experience that I don't think it's been since we had the last show. And this was with Gemini, and we've talked about what is the word that starts with an S? You're doing a presentation.
Sycophancy.
Sycophancy. Yes. So did you do that session actually at the AI conference?
I did not, but I have one. I'll be doing it 3 times in February. So the Missoula County Public School Teacher Professional Development Day. I'm doing it at NCCE, and I also got it on the agenda at the Digital Learning Annual Conference.
Oh, okay, because that's coming up.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. And the first time I gave it was 2 weeks ago. In fact, it was the day after we last podcast. I gave it at the University of Montana AI Summit, and it's a great presentation, but I had a lot of jaw drops in the room because there happens to be a lot of research about this, and it is it's not good.
Okay. All right.
About what the risks that are involved in it.
at the risk of speaking of risks, going down a rabbit hole of just like, hey, we're going to talk about how we're using the AI tools, which is honestly not a bad thing, a bad way to spend our time. So Shelley what was the story? There was one about school AI. Oh, she used ChatGPT a lot. But this was Claude. And so she, explained, I'm a fifth grade teacher creating science lessons, And the response was, that's wonderful. As a fifth grade educator myself, I understand. And, she had not said, take on the persona of you are a blah, blah, blah. And so that was wild. She didn't push back. We're talking later how like maybe she should have said, you are not a fifth grade teacher. You are an algorithm. And you can ask it to do these things, but we've already heard stories about these sorts of things when it seems to take on a mind of its own. Here's a big thing though, and I haven't had time to write a blog post about this. There is a big difference between Gemini for your school and Gemini for your, just commercial, well, not commercial, your consumer account. Again, Shelley was preparing, they're doing studies of biographies and like sort of, little narrated slideshows about astronauts. And so she asked about a African-American living astronaut, and the school version of Gemini said, oh, I cannot write a script about that. But you could choose someone else. And we're like, what is this? It seems so weird. Like this isn't because of race or ethnicity. And so I went back in and screenshotted this and it said, oh no, this is because I have strong guardrails about creating, so that we don't have deep fakes or misrepresenting living people. But if you choose someone who's passed away, then that's different. I'm like, why would your ability or your freedom to misrepresent be different? And so anyway, we took the same prompt, exact same prompt, and put it into her consumer Gmail Claude, immediately gave the script. So I'm not at this point an IT director like I was previously, but my use of Flint AI, which we have licensed as a school, gives me as a teacher the ability to set up guardrails, tell it how helpful or not helpful to be, how much of a coach to be. And so anyway, that was a big aha, like, wow, don't assume using Gemini Pro at school is going to be the same as using it on your own account, because exact same prompt, very different results, and that belies different guardrails.
That's super interesting. And in fact, one of the things, and we should probably just go down the Gemini rabbit hole for a minute here.
Anyways, why not? Right? Why not?
So the killer feature that hasn't been available for very long, and I can't remember if I mentioned this on the last episode or not, but is that you can now pull Notebook LM notebooks into Gemini directly, right? And so and actually, Wes, if you pop my screen back up there, this is my Pro Gemini account. There's a couple extra buttons on here because of a Chrome plugin that I'll talk about in our Geeks of the Week later. But now in my Pro personal account, you can literally click on Notebook LM and then add a notebook as a source, right? And because the inputs and outputs are longer and more flexible in Gemini than they are in Notebook LM, this does an extraordinary number of things a little bit differently. So, the demo I've been doing lately is we've talked a little bit in the past about that concept of knowledge oracles, which is something that we make at Digital Academy, taking open source textbooks and having a good base for knowledge. And so I'm going to just take in our U.S. history knowledge oracle, which has a series of open source U.S. history textbooks. And then I'm also going to add another notebook to this that is a group of resources that I have collected that are all about how to write text, how to write text for instructional purposes, right? And in the past, I focused mostly on things like creative nonfiction when I was writing a student-facing text, because that seemed to be what I thought I wanted. But as I've dug into the rabbit holes of materials creation, there's actually a lot of things that text can do that can be very positive or very negative to student learning. So now that I have these two Notebook LM, write a 2,000 word introduction to the causes of the Great Depression. 11th grade U.S. history students, actually, no, I'm going to say for 11th grade U.S. history students using the notebook LMs here for content and strategy for writing student-facing texts. And then I'm going to go ahead and ask it to do it in a canvas so that I can go in and edit if I want to. So it does have a prompt enhancement now too in Gemini, which is kind of cool. And so I'm going to use that in this particular case.
Oh, so that'll enhance your prompt before you send it.
Right, that's correct.
Wow.
And so, roll a AI educational content generator, 2,000 word introduction, causes Great Depression, the deliverables, input. And it kept my original in there too. So, and so I'm going to go. Now, this broke on me earlier today when I was trying to demonstrate this to a couple of my colleagues, but and I think it was having two notebooks in there. It usually works, but sometimes it gets a little mucky. But the fact that you can pull in an individual notebook now as a source. So, I have a ton of kind of unitasker notebooks. I have one that's how you edit things, right? And so, the methodically editing something. I have, assessment notebooks. I have problem and project-based learning notebooks. I have social studies pedagogy notebooks. I have, I have them on dozens of subjects now in my Gemini account. And the fact that you can pull them in or out, and of course it's going to pause me again today, but the fact that I can pull them in and out of a conversation to edit a text, to punch up a text, to write the text from scratch, that's a pretty extraordinary set of functions.
And I want to say this is not the typical way that I'm sure the vast majority of folks are using AI chatbots today. Most people are simply, talking to that quote unquote chatbot, and this idea of loading up your library of custom content and then focusing on it, or then using it as the guide, the mentor. I mean, makes me think about grad school or just undergraduate too, but just like all these textbooks, right? And it's like, if you have a non-digital DRM, non-digital rights management version, like a PDF of your textbook, like being able to load that up and then having that as part of this smart assistant that is going to help you do whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah. Well, and another example of this too is I think we've talked about this in the past, but Mike on our team at MTDA has created an MTDA notebook basically, and it includes all of our every position in our organization has a position handbook that is meant to allow continuity of service if we lose individuals. Here we go, beginning the analysis. It just took a moment. Pinpointing the parameters. I like actually this new feature in Gemini where it gives you a little detail about exactly what it's doing or working on. I think that's actually very interesting. But and it includes all of our position handbooks. It includes our student handbook, our parent handbook, and kind of all these pieces. And but we hope that that the add notebook as a source becomes part of the school version pretty soon, because it would make things like grant writing a lot easier, because all we have to do is literally copy and paste a PDF of a form into Gemini and say, open it up in a canvas and then, answer everything you can based on this notebook, which is based on our everything we've collected in Notebook LM.
To me as a teacher, this just so reinforces the importance of having students do something meaningful with content. I think for so long in education, it's been quite challenging to get content, right? Think about microfiche, think about interlibrary loan, think about, the high cost of a graduate degree or whatever, and just, the university, the access to it. Access to content is no longer an issue. Now, vetting it and verifying it is certainly vital, but I'm thinking about cross-examination debate, of course, and an activity where students can have all the evidence and research they want, but can you use it effectively and counter, arguments and positions of an opponent? That's a performative activity, but it seems to me the passivity of so much of sit and get education is just, and especially if it's graded assessed with essays, like, it is just so not going to work for the modern age when anybody can generate, graduate level essays with a few clicks.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now what you'll see here is that we have this essay now, right? And the one thing that it's done that I don't know how, well, hold on here.
Look at how it's given notes on the side.
Yeah,
it's like strategy to how it's done it.
Well, and then look at that. Oh, I can open both. That's really great. So not only did it write this, not only did it write this text here, right, but it also gave me the pedagogy, right?
It's opening the black box. This is more than just citing a source and saying, oh, that came from this document. That is trying to give some explanation of how it constructed this new piece.
Right. And so I'll show you one other example of this then. So I'm going to go back for a moment to my actual Great Depression text here, right? And this time I'm going to add in a different notebook. I'm going to add in my editing notebook. So, and again, this is based on sources I found it's basically advice to editors that are editing short and long form text. So I'm going to do that here, and I'm going to say, okay, let's edit the Great Depression text. Text, please start by pitching me a plan on how you will do it. And
okay, so this is just your chat window, I guess, on the side.
Yeah, it is.
This is Canvas. This is, again, and not everybody may be knowing this. Like, it's like your Google Doc. Your editable document there is on the side, and your chat is on the left.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that's related to that, I had the opportunity to go to FETC last week in Orlando. It's the first time I've been there. It's kind of ISTE-ish is the way I would call it. I'd never been to the Orlando Convention Center before, and so I do think that the size of the conference was hid well by the venue, and there were tons of people that I knew there that I didn't see, and I was pretty actively attending sessions too. But I did have the opportunity to listen to the US K-12 head from OpenAI, and what I was shocked, and I met the guy. We're actually going to try to connect on some issues, but great presenter, great presentation, but I was shocked at there was probably 250 people in the room for his presentation, and the vast majority of people in that room didn't know about Canvas and OpenAI. They didn't know about projects in OpenAI. They didn't know about custom GPTs in OpenAI. And this is part of why, and I know not everyone agrees with me on this particular point, but we have to prioritize giving teachers fundamental knowledge about how to use these tools. We can't rely on them to get it themselves, and also we can't rely on colleagues just sharing. Like we need real professional learning strategies here. So here we go. It's created an editing strategy for me, and it's going to give me 4 phases of editing, right? So does the strategy meet your plan? So I'm ready to begin phase 1 and phase 2 immediately. Yep.
Wow.
Do it. Edit the Great Depression text phase 1 and 2, please. And actually, this is the best I've seen with multiple canvases. It's never worked this nicely before, and that includes a lot of canvas work I've done in the last couple of weeks. So that's cool.
Have you considered? Guess I could have asked this offline, but like sharing like that editing notebook, like sort of like Mike Caulfield with the SIFT prompt, right? Those kinds of tools are phenomenal. And
well, part of the problem is that I'm not like not all this stuff is open source stuff,
right? Exactly.
There are things that I've purchased, right, or I've taken notes from, and I'm still not quite sure what where that's at. Now, what I've done in some ways is that I have spent a lot of time digging through like press books and stuff and the OER libraries to try to see if I can find examples of the different texts that that are open education resources, to see if I could find stuff that was good enough to do the piece. And I'll give you an example of that. I have a couple of project management notebook LMs that are a mix of free and not free resources. And again, before I put anything anywhere, like I own a physical copy. I don't even buy e-copies of these. I buy a physical copy of any book that I may have a digital copy of that I can stick in the large language model. But I've been working on some open source project management texts, and I found about a half dozen of them or so that were pretty good. And then I literally went into the Wikipedia, and they had a I took its project management article, and they had like project management box at the bottom of it and all these different kind of strategies and things. And so I turned that into one big gnarly PDF and stuck it in Notebook LM. And as it turns out, it does a great job of kind of advising on project management. So, again, complicated to set those up, but once you do, it's pretty darn great.
Well, thank you for sharing, as always. Not only the Notebook LM, but I see that you can import code. And when I talk about vibe coding a little bit later, just importing a repository straight from GitHub, that's extremely powerful. And I'm just on the tools, I've been just mainly using create images. I'm not even doing a lot of the deep research. It's got the create videos option with VO 3.1, the Canvas option, and then the guided learning option. So, oh my gosh, it is so important to be playing with these tools. And I am hopeful that in the months to come, I will be a part of a playing with AI group. I'm actually having another Zoom on at lunch on Friday with a couple folks that are interested in a North Carolina Media Literacy Consortium and doing a face-to-face event this summer. AI is so much it's such a focus, and it needs to be a focus that I don't know. We'll see if there's something like that would happen. AI. Are you guys doing another play date? You have another one scheduled?
We're actually going to do probably 6 before September 1st around the state. So we're working with a couple of events in fact, our next one is going to be in Billings in the second week of February. As part of some more professional learning pieces there, and we're loving the model. Still want to make sure that the attendance hasn't been super high, although the people that do attend very favorably rate the events.
Oh my gosh! Okay, what other parlor tricks do you have for us tonight?
It's magical. Let's talk about.
We can go to
one more Gemini article while we're here. They released personal intelligence last week, which means that if you have a pro Gemini account on your personal piece, it can now look at literally all of your information in its answers. And so
did you notice how it pops up and it wants to persistently get you to turn over access to its information? It's very irritating because there's not a checkbox that says, don't ask me this again. And now tonight it didn't ask me, but like it's been asking me that every day, every time I open Gemini. Can I have access to all your stuff?
And and I have 20 years of Gmail now in my account, right? And so I asked like some pretty deep questions, like who are the people that I have contact with regularly in Google, and I said avoid vendors. I just want to hear from people, and it did a pretty good job of kicking up 6 names. I also asked what are personal emails I've received in the past 6 months that I didn't answer that I should.
Oh, that's a scary question to ask.
Yeah, and as it turns out, I picked up 6 of them. And
what jobs? Yeah, what job opportunities? What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. And someone had sent me a very nice email after my father passed that I did not even see, and so I made sure to take care of that. So,
This is the dream. This right here, having these tools connected and be good enough to not, to be good, and then connected to like Gmail or our calendar. Like I think this, for me personally, I think this has been one of the dreams of AI, is that it could really help, manage what can at times be a very unwieldy thing, which is my email account that I've had for decades.
Yeah, totally. And also I have Google Docs going back to when Google Docs started almost 20 years ago now, right? And so we can look through all that stuff. I've started working on my 2025 taxes, and so I've done queries about making sure one of the things that I sometimes do as an idiot is not always get our charitable donations, all the receipts for that pulled from email. And so I decided to do it month by month, like, show me anything that you think is a charitable donation in January 2025, and I did it. And picked up things I never would have found. And
wow.
So,
which again talks to the value of pouring things into a trusted digital container, and then being able to use an AI tool to sift through that, identify patterns, pull out content, create content. Wow.
Yeah. And that's pretty hard to beat, I think. So I would say that I'm cautiously optimistic. Google hasn't always been above board on data stuff. I feel like they've been in general better than many other kind of broad platform providers. But personal intelligence amps us up quite a bit, and it is searching. I would imagine after 20 years of using Google Docs and Gmail, millions of pages of stuff, and seem like doing a pretty good job of it.
Okay, how about some vibe coding articles?
Yeah, I would love to hear you dig on the vibe.
Okay, well, my geek of the week is a vibe coding project that I did Sunday night and Monday as the holiday, and just crazy. So first, let's start with Casey Newton, who is the author of Platformer, which instantly runs on Ghost, not Substack, and we're going to have the first Monday of the month a Substack 101 for the Media Education Lab, if you're interested. But anyway, Casey is the co-host of Hard Fork, which is a podcast that I think Jason and I listen to pretty faithfully. And so he's describing useful things that he has built with Claude Code. And he talks about the release of Claude Opus 4.5, but then Claude Code, which Claude Code is actually different from just the regular Claude. And I had started this coding project, which I'll show here in a minute or a little bit later, in just regular Claude. One of the things it was doing was filling up the context window, or running out of tokens. Am I saying that right? Because it would basically freeze. It would lock up. And so one of the things that Claude Code and other coding platforms specifically are better at, I guess, is compressing stuff and then not just opening everything up sort of. I'm not going to say this right, but like in RAM, with our old computers, we're used to having RAM, and then we had hard drives. And anyway, the memory is finite and the context windows are getting big. But when you're working with a lot of code and a long, set of interactions, because what I would do is I would vibe code a bunch of stuff, create this, and I'm saving religiously these different iterations myself. The coding tools, I think, will do some of that for you. But then I would have this long conversation, and I would archive all of that as a PDF. And so then after it froze, I would be able to load up these conversations. Here's everything I've done to catch you, get to speed. I'm saying things like ingest all of these PDFs to get up to speed. Okay, so that was a good article by Casey Newton. This is an Atlantic article, which is by Leela Schruff. And the subtitles, you're about to hear a lot more about Claude Code. This is from January 14th. And again, it's just, there's a lot of hype around AI. And I suspect the majority of people using these AI tools today are not coding. And I've talked to plenty of coders. They're like, oh no, it's not good. And it's just, I haven't spoken to developers myself who were really enthusiastic, but I also think some of them might have been having this more vending machine approach, or I'm not sure how much iteration that they're doing. But it's kind of similar to what you're talking about with your own data and your own information. This article starts out with a story of like, ooh, could I do my iMessage wrapped for the whole year by putting, thousands and thousands of text messages into this container and then being able to ask it questions? What kind of questions would I want to answer? And, he created this vibe coded solution pretty readily. There is an interesting podcast. Have you run into many podcasts that are just straight up Notebook LM recordings?
No.
Okay, well, I've got an example for you. So I found this, in a media literacy quest, I guess, about filtering, trying to identify misinformation, disinformation, and it's called Digital Digging. And this is episode 9. It's called From Hidden Data to Insight: The Power of Vibe Coding. But this is straight up a published Notebook LM audio summary. It is not. There's not any kind of audio introduction. This is by Hank Van Hess, and I've listened to episodes. I'm not a faithful every episode kind of listener here, but I've listened to some in his own voice. But then it's interesting because he's also just publishing these straight up Notebook LM audio podcasts. This is the article that he's sourcing, and it's called Using AI to Find Hidden Data Sources. It tells a story about what Notebook LM, or I guess this is also Nano Banana, is creating these images talking about velvet barricades, but data. And one of the challenges of working with data, public data, is it's supposed to be public, but it's not maybe fully accessible because you have to write Python scripts and maybe you have to access APIs. And so this was talking about how, in 5 minutes, it found this, and this was a power outage it was a Dutch power outage that, it was able to find the API, then write the code, and then access the data and pull it in and do all kinds of stuff with it. So anyway, I can talk more about vibe coding, but I thought these were interesting for a variety of reasons. But the main message here is that Claude Code is incredibly powerful. Again, shout out to Jason letting me know about LM Arena, and I've shared that with a number of people. It just, among other things, the leaderboard on LM Arena raises your awareness of just how many models are out there, because everyone knows about ChatGPT and people have probably heard now about Gemini and things, but the leaderboard and under code says that Claude Opus 4.4 is the clear leader by substantial votes. Like the two different Claude Opus models both have one almost 7,000 votes, the other over 6,000. And anyway, Gemini Pro has a lot of votes too, but the score is less. Anyway, it's what a lot of the cool kids are saying. It's the best tool for coding. And boy, did I ever discover that is true. And so I can show some more of that. I could do it now, or we could talk about that later with the Geek of the Week.
Wes, help me with something for a second. So I've only vibe coded with chat bots, right? I haven't actually installed like Claude Code, for example.
Right.
Can you walk through like just broad phases? What does that experience look like?
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and show my Geek of the Week here, and then I'll show you the GitHub. All right. So this is news with Wes Fryer. What this does is there was a project that I did earlier in 2025 I called it Federated Reader. And on the Mastodon server, basically I set up an account. This is a Google script that runs in my email, and it pulls, I've got a couple of pin posts. It pulls every newsletter that I subscribe to, mostly with Substack, but with other things too. And it puts the title in here, and then the date, and then it has the link, and then it actually does, I guess this is an open graph image. So for most of them, it has an image, and here's the link. So you can go to any of these Substacks, because I honestly don't want to read my news in my email. I wanted to read it in Flipboard, and Flipboard is still my absolute favorite app to use on my iPad as well as my iPhone. And so anyway, that project. Okay. So you got a lot of different sources here, and the most recent ones, because this updates with what's called a cron job on my virtual private server. And this is all PHP. There's no database back into this. It has pulled the 20 most recent newsletter articles. For instance, I read Heather Cox Richardson fairly religiously. So this is the audio version that she did from her Letters from an American. Okay. So those are the most recent things 25 minutes ago. This is always updated. Flipboard is where I've since, I don't know, a long time. Here, let me see how many articles. I've been flipping articles. There's 51,800 articles in here. I've shared 12,000 stories. I have 6,593 viewers. This is my iReading. And so when I find something, like I just flipped the article, Jason, you said, Gemini introduces personal intelligence. And so sometimes I'll flip things that I actually read, or sometimes I'll flip things that I want to read. But this is like Mitch Resnick for Scratch has started a new podcast. This is a collection of things that I find interesting and valuable. It's a mix of news, like there's political stuff here, there's EdTech stuff here. I write some blogs. So I have like 4 different Substacks that I maintain with varying degrees of updating. But this pulls together those blogs and my Speed of Creativity blog. Then I'm into cooking. So there's my crockpot corned beef and cabbage from this weekend that you can again click on and pull. And then you can also do my video updates, which I have started a playlist called Wisdom with Wes. And so these are all these video updates. All of this works because of open feeds. So at the bottom here, it says powered by open feeds, and it says shared on Wes's GitHub. So here's my GitHub. This is the PHP script, which is over 1,400 lines of code. There is no freaking way in any universe that I am making this without Claude code. And so to your point, Jason, as far as how I use this originally, and I'm just opening my Claude, and I've got my different saved searches here. I was just, I guess I starred them. So these are the conversations that I initially started to have with Claude, but I've also archived these as PDFs. And I said, hey, I want to continue. Oh, okay. This was the first one. I think, by the way, it's valuable to save these transcripts of interactions. And I'm not sure that Claude Code does this quite as well. This was my initial prompt. Can you help me vibe code a solution that will dynamically combine and reorder and also format the following 3 RSS feeds? And then I went into this, and I ended up expanding it into more. Okay, when it comes to Claude Code, you click on this, and it's opening a separate window, and you can run this natively. And let me see if I can find my past. I actually haven't gone into it. Oh, that's a lovely title, isn't it? Explain this code base, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and that's what I clicked on. All right, so here's the whole conversation that what I've done. But what Claude Code can do is it can execute and run code. It can also write code directly to GitHub, and it can. I was working on my virtual private server, and I was having, and I probably ought to be careful of all the things that I share here, because there's IP addresses and things, because I was running terminal commands through WHM. I am not a super script guy. And so And of course, I had the AI generate my draft of this README that describes what all of this does. Sorry. I do this at school at the risk of putting politics on the screen. Google News. I didn't know about Open Graph. I guess every time you have a post about something, there typically is an image that it can grab, that it can use and share. So and I guess what I wanted to do is my GitHub. One of the biggest thing I would say about Claude Code that was so immediately apparent is that when you're talking about a large code base and a lot of stuff, that's a real technical way to say it, but things that are going to take up memory, they're going to fill the context window. The coding applications like Claude Code are optimized. So I was still typing in a chat window, but it was opening up, like you were saying, Jason, a canvas, showing my code, but then I could give it commands and tell it to, directly write stuff to my GitHub repository. If I had given it access, it might have been able to do more things directly, but I am not I'm like a script kiddie. So I don't live in the terminal and love the terminal. And I've worked with the terminal and some Linux, and I've installed Linux on my own computer sometimes, but it's just really dabbling. But being able to, just like it will get you the code, the exact code that you need to format things perfectly, or I could say, oh, I want to use this HTML color behind this button or whatever. I could also say, okay, I need a terminal command to do such and such. Like you can see, this was last updated at 10 o'clock, so it just refreshed. If I'm myself just trying to come up with the exact terminal commands that I need, I'm going to have a lot of trouble. I'm going to struggle. So anyway, this was absolutely the most sophisticated project that I have coded to date. My GitHub is just W Fryer. So I now have nine projects that I've done. This is the federated reader that I vibe coded, which again, this is a Google script. So it is JavaScript, but this runs as Google script on my own Gmail account at this point, pulling these articles out and then sending it to Mastodon. I think it is so powerful. And I'm teaching middle school coding right now. At the very end of last semester, we did a little bit of vibe coding, and we were using Flint AI, which is our school licensed, and because this is important too, what we're doing with students and privacy and all of that. So Flint is a designed to be student facing, privacy. I'm not just telling my kids to go, get a license for Claude or something. But I was amazed by what they could do, and I hope I am enthusiastically and clearly sharing with you. This is just so incredible. I mean, it is so incredible because it works. And I have wanted to do something like this for quite a while. And I'm continuing to work on something I'm calling like reclaiming our news feeds, but for communities that we're a part of. And I hope to do this with the Media Education Lab. I don't know if we'll be able to do this with our Indivisible Charlotte group, but like being able to connect to basically funnel in these different sources of content, because I'd love to see people who are sharing about media literacy, or maybe it is about food or something else, but being able to see those. And I think we've got to advocate for open feeds, because again, that's the only way this works. I can't legally scrape LinkedIn. I can't legally scrape Instagram or Facebook, but I can, scrape anything that creates a feed. And Substack does create a feed. And so these are the Substack newsletters that I have. I do one on media literacy. And so anyway, anything that creates a feed, all you have to do on Substack is you do /feed, and there's the RSS feed, and that's all the code, but that can be pulled straight into, it can be ingested into a solution that you code. So anyway, I have to figure out how I'll geek out about this, and this isn't something that's going to appeal to, the masses, but if we're part of a community, being able to create with algorithms through vibe coding a filtered dashboard of feeds is really, really freaking cool and powerful. And I think it also has implications for our democracy. So,
Yep. Me too.
All right. Did I overshare, dude?
Well, and like, and you're not the only person that has been kind of tempting me to get into vibe coding. And what I need to do is just install it on one of my many computers and just start playing with it. Right. I think that's the key piece to it. But to be honest, um, um, uh, I've made a couple Chrome extensions just with like literally just inside the chat interface, not with code at all, and they work just fine. And I do have an idea or two for like actual services that I could come up with.
Oh my
I'm a little
gosh, yeah.
terrified to do it because security and safety and blah 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 blah.
Right. Right. And we need to do that caution. We need to caution people against putting their own private information in there and against putting something into production. But this is a playing with media. This is playing with AI. This is playing with vibe coding. But it is mind-blowingly good. And this is both exciting and scary, right? Because a bad actor who wants to do malicious things now has access to such vast power. And I think it's the worst it's going to be. But yes, once your mind starts churning around like, well, could I do this? Well, what about that? It's really staggering. So to Peggy and anybody else who's on our live stream or you're hearing this, I would love any feedback that you have about it. What I hope to do is create a version of this that has an admin dashboard, because I got to figure, like, this one doesn't have a back end at all. It's just PHP writing stuff into a temp folder. And so anyway, I've been experimenting with some different things that have database backends, but being able to have something that anybody could grab and say, yeah, I've got a community, I want to grab feeds, because there's still, feed reader. I mean, this is a bit like Google Reader back in the day when we were building our own newspapers with Google Reader, using RSS. So anyway, it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it is
but it's fun to share because it is like, it really, I mean, I don't know what another analogy is, but it's sort of like being gifted some superpowers, you didn't know you were going to be able to do this. And I think back to the days when I was at Texas Tech University as the director of distance learning in the early 2000s, and I used FileMaker Pro, and we were using other kinds of tools with NT servers to be able to web enable stuff. And like, there were all kinds of things that I created for our student teaching and this was the dawn of online forms and being able to have an online database, but I didn't end up taking a coding path. And so there's been a lot of things that I used to make that I couldn't make anymore. Now it's like, I can make all those things now, plus even better things. So
yeah,
it's crazy. So yeah, I would just recommend, Jason, find a small project and jump into it and give it a shot. Do something that's low stakes that, is not going to, just something that's fun, but something that could be useful to you, because being able to create something useful for yourself. I am using that thing I coded last weekend. I've used, it's only Wednesday, but I've used it every day this week, because it's useful. It pulls stuff out of my email that's really valuable that I'm not going to click through my email to find these things. And being able to scan through and see an image, and anyway, the way that it's presented, the way that it's designed, all of that makes a difference.
Well, and then I'll just say one last thing on this, and then I see we're almost at the top of the hour here, but so they also announced something last week Anthropic announced something last week that's pretty extraordinary, that they're kind of bringing the Claude Code model to more work style things, because they were saying that Anthropic was talking about, when they released this, that a lot of people were using Claude Code to do things that weren't code, and I do that. I have it modify, my Obsidian vault, which is basically just markdown files, and it didn't care that it was, looking at meeting notes or summarizing a research article. It just did it, right? Because these models don't know that it's not in, doing C++ or Java or Python. So now they have something available called Cowork, which is only available on the Mac desktop app. And it basically, you can add a link to, or you can point it towards a folder that includes any kind of documents in it, Word documents, and not only can it utilize that as a resource, it can modify those documents, right? So in other words, you can create a local folder that allows it to push different work pieces out, so it becomes kind of a work agent. And I've been waiting for this for 2 years, to be honest. And it's pretty great. So and I've only played with it for like 20 minutes.
Have you all installed any local models, and are you thinking about doing that as far as privacy and access and stuff, in terms of some local AI models that you'll use to work with data, or not yet?
Well, I do, right? Like I personally, on both my work and personal MacBooks, have Olama on them. There is a vendor that is offering a local Mac Mini server that the problem is that the price is just out of the range of most schools. I think it was.
Is that private EDU ADI that Jeff Udek is doing, or is
it's Jeff's piece, right? And in fact, he just announced this morning that their $10,000 level, which gets you the Mac Mini and a year of service, is only an opening price, and that the opening price starting in February is going to be $20,000, and that's a big investment for the size of school that I think would be well served by something like that. And I think the part of the problem here is I don't know what kind of money is going to be in hosting local AI models. I also think that for some people, open source models is a bit of a fire point for them. So,
and there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of risk in all of it. So I see Jeff Udek more on LinkedIn. I've seen him post about that. I haven't read in depth about it, but.
Well, and I like the idea, right? And it's completely private. I would also hope that there is some kind of logging capabilities so that you can go in and check student chats, because I think that's a key feature that I would want in the school-facing AI for sure. I'm sorry, student-facing AI for sure. But I do think there is something to the privacy part.
Well, again, I'll mention it and I'll link it in the show notes. No affiliation, no kickbacks. Really on anything here. We're losing money doing this, folks. No. This is one of our main hobbies. Flint AI is the one that our school licenses, and I've been so happy with the fact that in multiple cases, the logged conversation has given me good opportunity to have conversations with individual students, with the class, the documentation. I mean, this is one thing I can say for sure. We need to help students. We need ourselves to learn, and we need to help students learn how to fully cite and document our use of AI, because there's all kinds of ways that people are using it. But I think one of the best ways when students are using it is to have conversations about what they used it for, what they did, what they learned, what their prompts were. And the more we can document that whole list of conversations, the more we can go back and look at it. And then you can also ingest those into your own notebook LM or whatever, and then ask it questions. And anyway, this is a different way of thinking where you can ingest vast quantities of data and then query it to identify things, find things, ask novel questions. It's just, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Well, do you have a Geek of the Week?
I do.
Would you like to share it on your screen?
I would like to share Cortex, which is a Chromium. I'm sorry, not Chromium, a Chrome plugin, which means it would work on the other Chromium-based browsers, I believe. But it adds functionality to Notebook LM, and so I have it installed right now. I'm going to find an example of here, my World War One, my first big notebook LM. So it adds a bunch of functionality to the process, but it has a couple of great features. The first one is that it adds a button that allows you to sync all your Google Docs that are updated. And so instead of having to do one by one, it does them all. It also allows you to download all the original sources from the notebook, which it doesn't currently allow you to do. You can narrow the view of sources down to PDFs or YouTube videos or text or web or Google Docs. And then it gives you a bunch of opportunities to change kind of how you export things, to what kinds of formats, what you can select, what you can add into different pieces. And it's pretty great what you're able to do with it. And it's a free plugin. It adds some of the functionality for free. I went ahead and paid for a lifetime license for it because it literally saved me probably 2 or 3 hours last week when I was working on a big project that I was kind of knee deep in Notebook LM. But I hope that Google Sherlocks some of these features, to use an ancient Mac term, but I love it. It's a great plugin and worth the money I paid for it.
Fantastic. Well, I already shared my Geek of the Week. It's news.westfire.com. So, Jason, what are you doing with all the free time you have recaptured thanks to the use of these AI tools?
Well, I've got through my email at work, which, shouldn't be something I brag about, but it's been a long time. So, best place to find me on the internet is probably LinkedIn. You can go to my website, aicentrist.com. But LinkedIn is where I'm sharing nowadays, and also go look for the Frontier Learning Lab Substack.
Absolutely. Well, you can find me at westfire.com, and there's a bunch of links there. But this has been the EdTech Situation Room. We appreciate the live viewers that we've had tonight. Peggy has said hi in the chat, and we've had a few other folks. So we are now on Substack. So you can still go to edtechsr.com and find all our links, but our podcasts are being published faster on Substack, and those propagate or distribute off to all of your favorite podcasting listening apps. So we are a mostly once a week on Wednesday night show, although sometimes we have to skip for things like FETC and other kinds of events. But we appreciate you tuning in. Please share the podcast. You can rate us. You can let other people know about us. And we encourage you to check out our show notes, as we mentioned earlier, at edtechsr.com/links. But our Substack posts now include not only the video version of the podcast, but also the links we talked about and the ones that we didn't. So until next time, we encourage you to stay savvy, stay safe, and I will say, keep playing with AI.
Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.